We're going to do Leetcode 169, the majority element. So, given an array of nums of size n, return the majority element. Majority element is the element that appears more than half the time in the input array, and we'll assume that it always exists. So, if we see here 3, 2, 3, 3 shows up more than half the time, so the output is 3. Same here with 2, 2 shows up more than half the time, so the output is 2. So n will always equal nums.length. N can be 1, 2, 5, 10 to the fourth, and then num sub I will be negative 10 to the ninth to 10 to the ninth. We'll try to do this in an O of n solution. A somewhat intuitive approach might be to go through the array and maybe add to another mock array account for each element. What we'll do is we'll use something called the Boyer-Moore algorithm. Initializes a counter and a majority, and it keeps the count as we go through the nums array. So first I'll initialize a majority variable and then a count variable. We'll initialize it to 0, and then we're just going to go do a for loop. So we'll let I equal 0, and then I is less than nums.length and I plus plus. And then we'll have two conditional statements. The first one is just checking if the count is equal to 0, identical to 0. We'll just go ahead and assign the majority element to num sub I. So that's like if it ever changes to 0, we can assume that a new majority element needs to be picked, since it'll be more than half the time. So majority element equals nums sub I. So the first time around obviously is going to be the first element. As we go through, that might change if a majority element changes. And you'll see with the next conditional statement, we'll do num sub I. If it's identical to the majority, we will add to the count. If it's not identical to the majority, we'll subtract from the count. And then eventually all we'll do is just return the majority element. So just to play computer for just a second, if we put in this array here, the first element going through will be 3. So majority count equals 0. So for the first element in the array, does count equal 0? Yes, it does. So the majority is 3. Num sub I. So num sub 0 is 3, so we'll set it to 3. So now the majority equals 3. If the num sub I, which is 0, is equal to the majority, which is true, we'll add to the count. Otherwise, we'll subtract to the count, but we'll add to the count. So we'll go through. Next iteration, the element is 2. So I is 1. We're on the second element, so if count equals 0, which is not true, we'll continue to move on. If num sub I is equal to the majority, which is not true, we will subtract from the count. So now the count is 0. So we go through the third time, count is 0, the majority is now set to 3, we'll add to the count, and since there's no more elements in the array, we'll return the majority, which is 3. So if we did this one, and we'll only do for the first couple, so you can see. So initially the first time around is just going to be 2. So the majority is 2. Add to the count, counts 1. Next time around, now the count is 2. Since it's equal to the majority, we look at the third element. We'll subtract from the count, so the count is now 1. We'll go through again. Now the count is 0. Now we're going to go ahead and assign that 1 is now the majority element. Now the count is 1. And then it goes back to 2, subtract, 2, subtract, and then 2 again, add, so now the count is 1, and then we'll return the majority. So let's go ahead and run it and see if it works. Oops, what did I do wrong? I forgot to put nums, not num. Sweet. So it accepted. I'll submit it. And since this for loop is going through and has to go through each iteration of the array, time complexity is O of n. So there we go.